Call the meeting to order at 6:17. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our town clerk has distributed the minutes to you. Are there any corrections in the minutes that you've seen? It was done verbatim, so. Anything from anybody? Okay.
No, the only comment, I feel terrible because it's like every time you were finished talking, I go, are you done? But I didn't mean it that way.
That is how it looks, though.
I know, it's terrible.
It does look weird.
Are you done?
All right, you know,
For the record, I didn't mean it that way.
Yeah, I didn't take it that way, so. All right, are there any corrections? All right. If there are no correction, may I have a motion to approve the minutes as distributed?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Go ahead, Peter.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call. Mr. Kudaraskis?
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carried. Supervisors' comments. We were gearing up to open up the town hall to the public, but the governor today passed an executive order extending his previous executive order closing buildings and businesses until May 15th. So that affects the town as well. Although people in the town are still working, they're still working from home. So for the public, I know it's a little cumbersome to get things done, but if you call, department heads are there, I'm here every day, you can conduct business. It's just we can't bring the employees back full-time. For one, we don't have the face mask and the proper PPEs, protective equipment for the employees, and everybody's having a hard time getting those. So until we get those, we wouldn't be able to bring them back anyway. And they're anywhere from 10 days to 4 weeks out. But certainly by May 15th, we're working on it now. All the towns are having the same problems. We should be able to get that up and running. But if you need anything done with the town, you can conduct business either on the phone, online. You can call the department heads. They will make arrangements for you. I know our town clerk has made arrangements with different people and gone out of her way to accommodate individuals with their requests. So we will make sure that you get things done if you need them. I received an email from a few citizens regarding people not practicing social distancing. And as the county executive said, he doesn't have a police department. The sheriff is an elected official and he's responsible for enforcing those type of issues. And the town of Lysander likewise does not have a police department. So we rely on the sheriff's department as well as the state police, and inside the village, the Baldwinsville Police Department. So any of those issues would be handled by those entities. The town is currently in a state of emergency, which I think might have expired today, and there's no need to re-up or continue with the state of emergency. So when that, I think today was the expiration date, that's going to expire, and it's due to the governor's executive orders and the county's executive orders. I think there's enough executive orders that the town doesn't need to add anything to that. So that the town is now not in a state of emergency. Let's see, I think that's all I have. Town board comments. Mr. Kudaraskis.
I just want to thank Pam Milek again for starting the Facebook page, Baldwinsville, helping Baldwinsville COVID-19, and all the volunteers that are answering the phones and helping to get product out to these individuals that are stuck at home, that cannot go to the store and get the products that they need. So once again, I just want to say thank you, Pam, for starting that page. Been a great help for the Lysander community. Thank you once again.
I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of what Jeff said. I've said many times over the years that the volunteers in this community are the fabric of our community, and so I want to thank everyone as well. I'd like to point out also and congratulate Tom Perkins and Clara Thomas, who have been voted as the Man and Woman Volunteers of the Year. Every year, the volunteer organization does this every year in Baldwinsville. And these two have newly elected, I don't know if we call them elected, but they're the Man and Woman Volunteers of the Year. So I want to congratulate them, but also more than anything, just thank them, because you don't get a title like that without putting decades of volunteer service behind your belt. So thank you very much. And again, everyone else who volunteers in our community. Other than that, I'm good.
Mr. Gerasi?
We'll just stick to business tonight, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Diamond?
The only thing I want to add is, like Pete said, the Facebook groups have been incredible. Mr. Supervisor, I appreciate watching your responses and watching the updates that you give on social media. Thank you for being front and center on everything, and so that's all I have for the agenda.
I appreciate that. Mr. Ivazigno?
I have no comments.
Okay, and tonight we have our town assessor here, who's also the assessor for the town of Van Buren, Ms. Golden, and she's going to explain some of the issues that they have come up with assessments, and we've had conversations, and we're going to continue discussions regarding assessments as much as we have to do it throughout the year, so that next year we won't get as many calls as we've received this year. So, Ms. Golden.
Good evening, and I'm going to speak to both the Lysander residents and the Van Buren residents, because the town of Van Buren has canceled their board meeting next week, so this will be my only opportunity to get the word out. We sent out, between the two assessors' offices in both towns, approximately 8,800 change of assessment notices this year. As you can imagine, the office is very busy because of that. It is also very lonely because all of my staff is currently working from home and I am the one working in the office. Those notices are preliminary assessment notices. What is a preliminary assessment notice? It is a notice prior to the tentative roll that lets a property owner know what the opinion of market value for your particular property is for the upcoming assessment roll for 2020. Preliminary assessment notices by law must go out before May 1st. So this year, I know the timing was absolutely horrible, but the only choice I had was to send them out in a timely fashion so that property owners would still have the ability to provide input prior to that tentative assessment roll filing. I have been speaking with property owners for the past month regarding their assessment concerns by phone because of our restrictions. If you have a concern about your assessment, your preliminary assessment notice, there is still a week to go in Lysander and Van Buren before the tentative roll will be filed on May 1st. All of this is real property tax law. New York State has not varied the law, and my job has remained the same. Our valuation date for this assessment roll is July 1st of 2019. So what we are experiencing now in the real estate market will be part of what I'm going to be looking at for next year's assessment roll. If you have questions and would like to learn more about the process, just call the office. The calls are forwarded to my staff, and they are doing scheduling. So if you have concerns about your assessment, you have questions about the process, you still have another week to reach out to the assessor's office. The process has not changed. 20 odd years ago, the town of Lysander and the town of Van Buren made the commitment and spent the money to have a total townwide reevaluation. They brought all of the assessments that were fractional up to 100%. For the past 20 years, both towns have made the commitment to keep those market values at current levels. That is what my job is. That's what I have done for the past 20 years. It is based on an analysis of the entire assessment roll. And for residential properties, it's a measurement of the level of assessment in each neighborhood. If your assessment is determined to be within 5% of market value, nothing happens, you don't even know we looked, and we go to the next neighborhood. We have seen 10 to 12% increase in values in both towns over the past 3 to 4 years. So every year we are playing catch up, and that is what has resulted in multiple years, multiple changes. If you have questions, please contact the office, and we will schedule you time where I will call and explain. Grievance day is by law also May 26th for the town of Van Buren and June 2nd for the town of Lysander. Grievance day will happen because it is required by law. Because of our restrictions, we're going to have some new procedures, which we are finalizing currently. It looks like it's going to be a paperwork only option by mail, and the grievance board will contact you on grievance day with a scheduled phone discussion prior to their deliberations. We will be including a grievance day instruction sheet with all of the informal reviews that will be going out May 1st. We will also be putting that information on the both towns' websites as soon as possible. We are finalizing the details at this point. If you have questions, you may also reach out to either assessor's office. Questions from the board?
Teresa, I do. And again, to just, for the record, the work you do in your office is exemplary. And I don't know how to phrase the question, but you take house X, and you said, as you were explaining this, it's in a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess how you define a neighborhood is what's intriguing to me. And I'm not criticizing, it's just, I don't know how you define a neighborhood. So for example, and I'll use an example, it's not my house, but houses on Emmerich Road go from houses that are kind of old, they've been there a long time, all the way down to the dazzling houses on Irene Drive, and of course Whispering Oaks, and the new development that's going in across the street from Irene Drive. Is that all one neighborhood?
No.
Okay, so
It
those
is
are
not.
separate, okay,
Yes.
I think you're kind of answering my question. So how do you pick neighborhoods? How do you do
Okay,
that?
well, the neighborhood that you live in is what we call a rural neighborhood. It is not what you think of when you think neighborhood. You think the neighborhood development, the houses are all pretty much the same, they're built within 10 years, and they're all very similar. Your neighborhood is a mix of properties because of the rural setting. Location is very important. And the fact that the rural areas of town do not benefit from water, in most cases typically, do not benefit from the services, natural gas, water and sewer services that the traditional neighborhoods have. And so in your case, it's a quadrant, it's a grouping of rural properties. And they are all in that location in the town. And yes, there's a mix of properties. And when we reappraise properties, if you have an old style house that's 200 years old in your neighborhood, I'm looking at those types of properties. If you have a brand new house, I'm looking at the brand new houses. The trending was very limited in our rural neighborhoods this year, and the only way I trend is if we've reappraised recently, which means we've adjusted based on those specific house types. You mentioned Whispering Oaks and the new neighborhood, the new houses that are going in that area. They are their own unique neighborhood.
They are their own.
And I'm getting a lot of questions to give you an example, from the town of Van Buren. where the Seneca Golf Course used to be. The people in that area are calling, even before the change of assessment notices went out, what's gonna happen to my assessment because of that new neighborhood? Absolutely nothing, because they will have their own unique neighborhood code,
That's
and
good.
they will be valued as a group together. And so a lot of times it's location, and similar houses, similar ages, builders. Yours is a little different because of the rural setting.
Do you ever change the neighborhood code as
Yes.
we were talking before?
Yes.
Okay.
I have actually changed more neighborhood groupings here in the town of Lysander in the 10 to 12 years that I've been here than I've done in 20 years in Van Buren. The first year that I was here, the groupings in Radisson did not make sense. And I don't know where they came up with the groupings, but the first summer that I was here, I call it housekeeping. And that, when the assessor's office kind of slows down for the year, that housekeeping basically resulted in Radisson being wiped clean and making all new neighborhoods based on whether it was a townhouse, whether it was a single-family house, and when it was built. But now, I'm gonna have to probably adjust it again, because the newer houses in Radisson, when we did this back in 2009, 2010, that newest neighborhood had about 10 years of houses that were built, that were put together. Now we've gone 10 more years almost, and we've got 20 years. That's too big of a span. A newer home, has a different price point, even everything being equal, than a house that's, 15 years old. So yes, I do, always.
And I have one more question. So again, this is for the benefit of the folks out there that just don't know how it all works. But so an assessment of a house that goes up, let's say, 2 or maybe sometimes 3 years in a row, and other houses, friends of theirs, their house hasn't gone up at all, the assessment hasn't changed. That's a reflection of movement in that neighborhood, Teresa?
Yes, and where those sale prices relate to the assessments. There are two basic requirements when you're doing annual adjustments, annual reappraisal, if you will, of an assessment roll. If the market was completely flat and nothing, where we're gonna end up after the virus, I can't tell you. But if the market is completely flat and there's nothing happening, at least once every 6 years, that neighborhood must be reappraised.
Oh, really?
So if nothing happened for 6 years, every single property, every single neighborhood, residential, and as well as vacant and commercial, must be reappraised in that time frame. The other requirement is to maintain a level of assessment at 100%. That's the goal that both towns have set, and that's the bar that I have to measure up to every year. And that 5% is the statistical trigger. If you're between 95 and 100, you're 100. If you're 92 or 93, you're not at 100, and your neighborhood gets adjusted.
Have you ever lowered the assessment?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yes, I have. On multiple occasions, both in Van Buren and in the town of Lysander. It's not about raising taxes. It's not about more money. It's about equity and adjusting the assessment roll to reflect market conditions so that everybody pays not a penny more than their fair share. If we measure that sale prices have gone down and assessments are too high, it works the same way in reverse. And yes, I have done that.
Teresa, when residents say, what's the value of being assessed at 100% rather than 50% or another number that the town would come up with, what are your, how would you respond?
Well, there's a lot of different reasons why it's better. 100% assessment is very easy for property owners to understand. They can look at that assessment and they can say, okay, is my house worth that? It's easier to hide inequity if you're assessing at a fraction, because there is no correlation between, there isn't much of a correlation between the assessment, the market value, and your sale price. So in the benefits to the town, when you get a change of assessment notice, and we mail them if they go up or if they go down, every single year to every property, you have an opportunity to talk to me. You have an opportunity to go to the Board of Assessment Review, and then there's other legal steps that you can take beyond that, depending on the property. So you have those multiple things that you can, avenues that you can pursue. If your equalization rate in the town drops because your level of assessment is dropping, and the state says, okay, you're not at 100%, you're not at dollar for dollar anymore, your share of the pie gets bigger because they're gonna apportion more of that budget to your municipality. And that causes a swing in your tax rates. And depending on how much the equalization rate drops, tax rates can double from year to year. So if you were paying $20 per thousand one year, you would be paying $40 per thousand the next year. It is very common for those changes in a market if equalization rates are continuing to drop. When you get a change of assessment notice, you know about it ahead of time. It's not your bill, it's not the assessment roll, you have options. If the equalization rate drops and the tax rate comes out and the tax rate has fluctuated and gone up, it's already your bill. You can't grieve that. It's your bill and you have to pay it. And the town of Clay, for instance, has not done a reval in maybe 60 years. An assessment roll, the longer you go without a reevaluation of some kind, the more equity is lost on your assessment roll. People are paying less than their fair share, people are paying more than their fair share, and because they assess at a fraction, it's hard for the property owners to understand what that $4,000 is going to be. So those are a couple of the reasons why. Okay?
Thank you.
And I think maybe if anybody else has a question, great, but the only other thing I would add, I think it's important for the viewers to understand the town board and the assessor's office are two independent groups. The assessor does not do the bidding of the town board. The town, you are an independent agent, as you should be, but the town board doesn't tell you what to do or how to do your job.
No. Only the town board has made the commitment to maintain the assessment roll.
Right.
I attribute that to maintenance. It's cheaper to maintain an assessment roll and to keep it equitable and current than it is to go buy a new one that you've let slide for 10 or 15 years. So in the end, it's taxpayer money that would have to buy that new assessment roll. And just for everybody's benefit, when I say I'm assessing at 100%, the state verifies that. They are looking over my shoulder the entire time, looking to make sure I'm doing it legally, that I'm, when I say we're assessing at 100%, that we actually are. And a 3-page narrative every single year goes to the state telling them what the plan is, what we analyzed, where we're going from here. They do their own analysis, and then before any of the changes are implemented, the state numbers and the town numbers are compared to determine, that we're all going down the right path.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
No, thank you. That was great.
Thank you.
Obviously, there's a lot of information that Ms. Golden just presented, but her grasp of knowledge on the topic's impressive, because you did that without any notes. I mean, you look at me up here, I got plenty of notes just to keep myself moving forward, but I've had numerous conversations with Ms. Golden about it, just so that I understand more clearly what's going on. And like Mr. Gerasi said, as people call up, I'll ask Ms. Golden, I'll say, hey, a citizen called up, asked this question, and she explains it to me. But now you can see why at the last meeting I said that I can't explain it very well, because it's a complex and comprehensive system that she is working with, but I can tell you that she's very conscientious and competent, and I think she does a great job. She's a hard worker. I don't think that the town could ask any more of her, and I think she takes some undue criticism, and I think she's doing a very fair job, and that's why I asked her to come in, because I think it's more about people not understanding the process than it is what she's doing, because I think that as people understand the process a little bit better, that will relieve some of their concerns that the assessments aren't fair. So what we are going to do, made a commitment to do, Ms. Golden and I have talked about it. She is going to come in as much as she needs to come in over the next year, so that next year's assessments, people are really going to understand what's going on. She's going to be doing some things on PAC-B. And if you have any questions, you should send them in to either her office and she's kind of busy now, so you could send them in to me and I will forward them to her. And as these questions come up, we'll formulate, we might not do it every meeting, but we certainly are going to do it a number of times over the next year. And as we formulate maybe 4 or 5 questions, or we see the same questions coming in, we will ask Ms. Golden to come in again, and we'll address those questions, because as you can see from her explanations, it's complex. It takes you a couple of times to really grasp what's going on. At least it did me, but I have a lot more notes than she did. So she has a good understanding of it.
If we get a lot of the same questions, repetitive questions, can we do a Q&A with the questions asked and her answer on our website? So that way people, when they go there, they can
Sure.
actually formulate,
Yeah, we're gonna do whatever it's gonna take so that people understand what the process is. Anything else? Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Bruce.
so we'll go to the regular agenda items. May I get a motion to authorize the town supervisor to sign the Town of Lysander landfill 2020 post-closure monitoring assistance and analytical proposal from Barton and LaJudas in the amount of $3,240.
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 And I'm an aye as well. Motion carried. May I get a motion to authorize the town supervisor and town highway superintendent to sign the 2020 hot mix paving projects contract with Northern Paving LLC in the amount of $3,225, $978.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? These were all put out to bid, and that was the low bid. So, all in favor? Mr. Kudarowski?
Aye.
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 And I'm an aye as well. Motion carried. May I get a motion to authorize the deferment of rent for Tina Solomon for April and May 2020 until the end of the current rental agreement, which expires on October 31st, 2023. The additional 2 months' rent will be paid in full by October 21st, 2023, which is the end of her contract.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Discussion? Okay, Tina Solomon is the lady that rents space from the town, and she asked if we would consider deferring some of her rent, because obviously what she's going through now, she's lost a considerable amount of revenue, and that's why the motion was made.
Has she applied for the SBA loan?
I didn't ask her that.
Okay. Because if she did, would this jeopardize it by us doing this? Do you know about that?
I don't know if it would. The loan is more towards salaries.
Right, and mortgage or rent too that you gotta use it
Yeah,
for.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I will bring that up to her.
Yeah.
I will have her check into that. But, all in favor?
Aye.
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 And I'm an aye as well. May I get a motion to authorize the town supervisor to purchase PPEs, personal protective equipment, mask, gloves, and sanitizer, etc., for the town of Lysander employees with the cost not to exceed, and we need to put a dollar amount in there. I didn't,
What do you want?
I mean, it ranges so much. I think that certainly I'm gonna look around and only, buy what we need, but I think we probably should put a number somewhere around $7,000.
That much, wow.
Yeah, it's, well, what happened, everybody wants it, so the cost went out of sight. And sometimes you can only buy in bulk. But I'm gonna talk to the other towns, and they're like $5 a piece per item, where they were 80 cents a piece before. So if we have to buy 1,000, or 500, then you gotta buy sanitizer, and a lot of times you have to buy it in bulk. And the only reason I'm putting the number there is just so we don't have to do this again, because sometimes it takes, like I said, anywhere from 10 days to 4 weeks to get it, and we have to do it. We don't have a choice. We have to provide this equipment to people.
So the hand sanitizer, there's a lot of people making it out there too, so we're gonna take that in consideration as far as purchasing it.
Yeah, I have Mr. Woolsey, Mr. Yeager. I'm checking out the local town supervisors are all, as an organization, we're all getting together, and everybody's sending in their information on where they're buying the stuff, and so that we can all see, who's got the best prices, how much we have to have. If we, if it says you gotta buy 5,000, maybe we can split it up with some other towns.
Right.
So we're going to do that, but
Bob, where did you get your $7,000 number?
well, if the minimum amount that I'm looking at right now is like, that I can purchase is 1,000 masks, and that would cost almost $5,000. And I don't know how much the sanitizer is, and then we have to buy gloves, and I don't know if we have to buy, we have to buy Lysol if you can get it, and all of that has gone up. The reason I said 7, I just want to make sure there's enough in there, but I'll tell you, I'm looking around. I'm a thrifty shopper, so I'll probably buy a little bit more than we need right now, so we have it, in stock a little bit, because I think that's, moving forward, we should do that anyway, but I'm certainly not gonna get crazy. I'm gonna buy what we need, but I wanna make sure that we can get it and we have it.
And I think you have to, obviously you have to do it, there's no choice, but Bob, maybe you can explain to all of us, so who's gonna use these and for what?
Well, every employee, we have to provide every employee with a mask when they come back to work. We have to have sanitizer, we have to have gloves. So every employee in the town has to use it, all of us, when we're working, if we're dealing.
Every day they have to change?
Every day, yeah. Well, yes. They don't have ones that, and I can't answer that, but most of them are disposable. You could wear it for a day, but I don't know if you can sanitize them or, what you can do with them. I'm not sure. I mean, if you can, if we can reuse them, I'll get some that you can reuse. And that'll keep the cost down. But it's my understanding certainly the gloves you can't, the spray you can't, the sanitizer you can't, the mask, I don't believe you can.
And the gloves, you're gonna go through multiple gloves per day anyways.
Yeah,
Individuals.
correct.
Keep them on. Yeah.
Correct.
Wow.
And we're not the only one. That's everybody's in the same situation.
All right, so put $7,000 down.
Okay. Do I have someone to make that motion?
I'll move that.
Bob, you got it?
I moved it, yes.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Kudaraskis? Mr. Moore?
Oh, aye.
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 And I'm an aye as well. Any new business from anyone? No? Okay. May I get a motion to adjourn at 6:52?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Kudaraskis. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 And I'm an aye as well. Motion carried. Thank you.